It's time for the chaos to cease.
Time to open yourself to peace.
From the hours you've put in.
To the next shift you begin.
From the endless pursuit of release.
That finds the worst unleashed.
Transform the ugly into a win.
Get to know your shield within.
Good evening and welcome to the Shield Within. And welcome to our Season 2 opener. I'm Marc the Cop, and the good-looking gentleman here to my right is Dr. David Buchanan. Now, we have to say that he's not a real doctor, but, you know, for those of you who tend to believe what you hear on the internet, so it's all got to be true, right? Okay, so we have a couple of guests today, and I am going to say I'm super excited because this man, I idolize this man that's going to be on our show today, not only Mr. Hat, but Mr. Hat's with us again today, but this man that we're going to have on the show today really helped me through some really dark, deep passages coming up to the end of my career. I discovered his show, the Roll Call Room podcast, as I'm sitting there on midnights, as my relief sergeant used to say, rotting, and came across his show, just struck a fucking chord with me like you wouldn't believe, as he did thousands of other police officers across the United States. And if I butcher your last name, I apologize.
You're going to anyway.
It's Ruggiero, right?
Oh, you got it.
Mr. Nick Ruggiero. He was a sergeant. Do we want to bother talking about the shithole you left?
Oh no, you could talk about it. I mean, it's in like 15 different books I read.
Let's just we're not going to talk about my former agency just because they love me and I love them so much. So it was in a major metropolitan area, and President 45 refers to it as a swamp, so we'll just say it's a suburb of the swamp, and it's accordingly described correctly as part of the outlying swamp. So him and I have a very similar story. Without further ado, Mr. Nick, go ahead, sir.
Hey, can you hear me? Oh no, that we're not doing the other episode. The folks at home don't know. We tried for 2 hours to record an episode, and the podcast gods did not allow it to happen.
No, it wasn't happening that day.
Yeah, I just want to say that I actually am a doctor. I'm just not licensed or registered.
Gynecologist, right?
No comment.
I'm not a doctor, but I'll have a look.
I appreciate the kind words. Doing the Roll Call Room podcast was always enjoyable. I listened to those earlier episodes, and it's really like listening to somebody else. It's not really like I was there.
Wow.
And it's kind of fun in a way because I don't remember almost all of that shit.
You
because
do or do not?
I don't remember a lot of the shenanigans that the original Mike and I did, because we were really trying to push the envelope as much as we possibly could.
Knowing you did.
I pushed the envelope right out the door. And I was doing another podcast the other day, and I spoke about that when we first started that podcast. It had always been about like just reaching one officer that was struggling, and ultimately what we were doing was, I think subliminally, we wanted our command staff to react. We wanted them to do something stupid. We wanted them to do something illegal to us. And never in our wildest imaginations would we have thought in a law enforcement agency that they would do that and then some. And you see a lot of that in law enforcement, like now, where you can't leave. You can't stay, but you can't leave.
Right.
And it's like that. It's a cult.
Right.
It's like, you drink the Kool-Aid, but like you can't leave the compound. And then if you do leave the compound, you're the crazy one.
Yes.
Because you're talking about the stuff that's going on inside the compound, and they don't like that. And with with my particular agency, they not only didn't like it, they didn't like the book, the first book that I wrote, which was Police Mental Barricade,
Very
a
good
survivor's
book,
guide to law enforcement. Yeah, well, I'm trying to write volume 2 of that book. It's been, I think when I when I was on last on your show, I had just either started it or I had put it away and I wasn't really working on it. I am no closer to finishing it than when I was on your show last. Like,
so you're fucking teasing us on Facebook when you're like, "Coming soon." I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah. I'll write like 2 paragraphs, and I'm like, "Yeah, this is almost done."
Well, you're working
this is
on
almost
it.
done. This is almost done. But but this time around, I'm doing like consciously. As I'm writing it, I'm consciously going. I'm trying to listen to feedback that I got from the first book or multiple books, which is that a lot of my books are geared towards what's wrong and not geared towards how to fix them. And I don't think some of the folks that wrote those reviews really fully understand what the purpose of the books were.
No.
It was not. I didn't write those books to turn around and go, "These are the issues, and this is how we fix them." My books were more of to bring light of so that other officers in fucking Texas and Florida and Alaska, when they read this book, they can go, "Oh shit, my command staff sucks too." Like
you fuckers suck.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Like, there's been a couple of reviews where I don't know whether or not they thought I was J.K. Rowling's or something or Stephen King. There's no like resolve at the end of these books. It's not this is how fucked up shit is, and then this is how we should fix it. And so this book, I'm kind of trying to do the things are still fucked up from 3 years ago when I first wrote the book to, okay, this is how much more fucked up it is, and maybe we can change it if we do X, Y, and Z. And that's difficult because getting folks in law enforcement to understand that they don't like the way things are and they don't like change. So there's no fucking happy medium. You know, there's no happy medium. Right. So it's going to happen eventually. I gotta really just bunker down and just get it done and just get my OCD under control and just focus,
Well, but you have a career. You have a life after Leo, wonderful career that we've shared with offline, and you're busy, and I get it. I mean, I'm writing a book on my experience.
Awesome,
because no one's going to fucking believe it, but.
Is it a coloring book though? I mean,
yeah, it's a coloring book for the shitter, so you can use your own colors.
See, and that's it's funny that you say that because I took a lot of hits because my book is double spaced and very large font, and they were like this thing's 145 pages, but if you did single space and smaller font, this thing would be 25 pages. Right. And I was like, that's the fucking point. Yeah. Most cops don't want to fucking read single, like fucking 10-point Times Roman. Right. Yeah. And like, I don't want to read that shit. Right. So it is meant for you to have an hour and a half read on the shitter. Like, yeah, exactly. I hate to put it that way. I might actually put that on the front cover for the new one.
A good read while you're taking a dump.
Is it all in capital letters? Because that's how I read everything's capital letters.
Yeah, Jeff shouts everything. So
that's how you type everything. And
right.
Or how we had to.
Jeff, the funny part was I knew when I put the book out, like, there was some apprehension. I knew that if it failed, it would fail on a colossal level because my former agency would revel in that failure. They would enjoy that failure. Yeah. So there was a sense of like, I was a little apprehensive to put it out, and so it went out. And I'll never forget this. I put it out at the time. I went through a company to self-publish. Since then, I've now moved on to another company. Mm-hmm. But this company, I sent the book in, and they were like, it'll take a couple of days for this book to go live. So it goes Kindle first, online book, then the printed copy. So I was like, all right, I got a couple of days to kind of, get mentally prepared for this thing. And I remember waking up the next morning and getting an email saying your book has been released and it's available as an e-copy. And immediately I went right to Amazon and I typed in my name and my book came up and it had #1 bestseller, #1 new release. And I was shocked. I had to take a screenshot and like send it to my wife and say, "Hey, could you go on and just double check
verify
what I'm seeing?" And and this is how much as a cop, where we're not programmed to receive certificates and recognition. That's not what we do it for.
Right.
Where I started to minimalize it, where I was like, well, my book was probably the only new book that got released last night. So that's probably why it's the #1 new release.
Yeah.
I was like, probably slow day. Nobody's buying books, blah, blah, blah. I really tried to minimalize it as much as I possibly could.
Right.
And then as the days went on, it was day after day after day of #1, #1, #1. And I was like, holy
That's awesome.
shit. And so then I started to Jeff's point was, the feedback that I had gotten from my old agency through snitches that I still have in the agency was that the command staff was making fun of the double space, the large font, and the excessive amount of commas that I used.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah, and I had to laugh because I was like, there's really bad stories in that book. It doesn't paint the Alexandria City Police Department in a good light at all. Like, I don't think that there's actually one good thing in that book about them. So it was very reassuring. No, and it just gets progressively worse. Like, I don't know if we talked about it on the last time that I was on your show. My former chief of police that I did not get along with, that ultimately had a hand in forcing me out. He ultimately was forced out of the position, thanks to me on a separate reason. I had before I took this job that I'm at right now, where I'm really happy, I was working for the federal government. And when I was trying to get hired there, they did a background investigation on me for my top secret clearance, and internal investigations lied on that background investigation. Yeah.
Ready to pull that trigger, wasn't you?
Yeah, and I was shocked too, because it wasn't like I was applying at Target.
Oh yeah.
Like, they're gonna check that shit that you say. And my federal background investigator was like shocked. Like, she legitimately was like, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I've never seen anybody do this before. Like,
welcome to my world.
This is very obvious. Yeah, she's like, this is very obvious that they do not like you. I was like, yeah, I could tell you. I could have told you that. and so this is the funny part. This is the petty side of Nick is that obviously he was from California. He moved from California to Virginia for this job. When he decided to give 2 weeks notice, AKA he called it a retirement, but in reality it was being forced out. He had to put his house up for sale. So we went to his house with copies of my book, and we left it all over his house. I couldn't resist.
Oh, well played, man.
and
did you sign them though?
Oh, of course.
With love. Fuck you. Hope you get ass cancer.
I even left one in the refrigerator, propped up against the milk. And the funny part about it is like, I could say it now because it's a while ago. He didn't sell his house in the first 2 weekends because somebody may have booked all of the open house lots for those 2 weekends. If there's anybody from Redfin listening, you should really change that, because it was really easy. It was super easy.
I love it.
But, I could laugh. I could laugh at that stuff now, because it's I'm in a very, very different place. I'm not angry anymore. I'm more of like, I pity the folks that I dealt with, because that anger, and I learned it the hard way is the anger, that consumes you. And then when it's gone, that's a big, big void to fill. Mm-hmm. And, then you start filling it with very, very different dark things that you really shouldn't be filling it with. Yeah. And so I'm very different now. I don't hold any ill will towards my old agency. I really pity them. That's the best way I can put it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You're not angry anymore.
No. I love your voice, man. You should do like, you should be like the dark, dirty ASMR guy on
YouTube. Give us a sample, Nick.
Yeah. I am now opening up the kitchen cabinet. The strawberry jam is dirty.
Strawberry jam. That's a bumper sticker.
He would be the only guy. He would be the only guy on OnlyFans.
Strawberry
$15.99, and you send them like a minute and a half audio. It's like, you didn't clean your car today, you dirty bastard.
Never work again.
Oh my God.
You need to blank your screen, Nick.
Yeah. It's a good thing the camera is from waist up.
Yeah.
I'm honored. So to answer you, I'm not angry. Where I do get angry is when I see other officers going through it now in my old agency, and it's the same stuff. They haven't learned. The chief that was miserable in my old department is gone, so that's not the excuse anymore.
Right.
It's a culture, and it's not just within that department. It's in every department. I was on a podcast the other day where these two gentlemen started a podcast from listening from the Roll Call Room podcast, and they started it. And they reached out and they were like, hey, we want to start this podcast. And I said, I will caution you on what the repercussions of that are, what it is, while you're still working in the agency that you're in. Yeah. And they were like, no, we're ready for it. And I said, listen, you think you have the First Amendment right. You don't. You don't. No, you don't. You think that you have the ability to say what you want as long as it's not racist, it's not derogatory, it's not anything that would discredit the agency or yourself. That's not the case anymore. It is, you will do what we tell you to do on and off duty, or you will be off duty permanently. We will promote you to civilian quickly.
And sometimes that's the best promotion you ever want.
That's the thing is I look back on it now. I'm happy that I'm out because I don't think I would have survived in the current climate in law enforcement right now. I just don't have that. I'm just not wired that way anymore. My work ethic is completely different in my new job than when I was a cop. I'm not a clock watcher, but I'm certainly not that guy that will put 80 hours a week in and sacrifice family time. That's not the case.
No.
No. I did it for 20 years.
Say we did that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did that. I sacrificed kids growing up and stuff like that.
Right.
I say this all the time, and it sounds very callous, but it's the truth, which is I did for the mission and the community for 20 plus years. Now it's about making money and having a meaningful retirement when I'm ready to retire. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. If law enforcement doesn't want to buy what I'm selling anymore, well, I'm going to sell it to the private sector, and I'm going to sell it for big, big bucks. Mm-hmm. And folks that are listening to this that are kind of have their foot one out the door and one on a banana peel trying to figure out whether or not they want to go, you need to make that jump, because your value right now in the private sector is very, very high. Very high. and your sanity is worth more.
Yes.
You know, Mr. Hat fell into a nice job, didn't you, there, post-retirement?
It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, he's a...
Safety director.
Is that the guy you were telling me about that's like dresses mannequins?
That's a side hustle. That's a side hustle.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the side job. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. He's dresses
He
up
was
in...
texting me. He was texting me, and he was telling me that like it's an overnight gig, and you got to do stuff to the mannequins to make the clothes stick to it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's right.
it's like, wow. No wonder why you need a break every 15 minutes.
That's why I go to Dr.
Weeks.
Dave. Help me through this.
That's awesome.
Further inspiration. I'm wondering, how did you go from being angry to being much less angry? How did that happen?
I'd have to say a lot of it had to do with the new job that I'm at now, because when I left law enforcement, I was working for the government, and it was not a good job for me. It was not a good fit for me. I wasn't utilizing any of my skills. I was miserable. And I was doing it for a paycheck. And that's a scary thing, because then you're screwed. You're like, you know. And so I applied for this job. It took me a long time to get this job. It was a very, very difficult job to get. And when I got on, I was valued right away. I was valued. I felt like I was contributing like I was when I was in law enforcement. I felt like I was filling a void.
Right.
And people respected my opinion. People respected my expertise in certain things. And that kind of started to fill the void, because for a long time, the reason why I was angry is because my old agency got their way.
Okay.
They got their way because they destroyed my law enforcement career, and they really destroyed my outside of law enforcement career, because I couldn't earn. Every time I would go for a job, they would give a bad recommendation. And again, I didn't figure that out until I went to go work for the federal government. I was acing these job interviews over the phone because it was during COVID.
Right.
And then like they would call me like a couple of days later, and they go, "Hey, we're going to go with somebody else." And I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like, well, this is weird. And then finally it dawned on me. I was like, "Yeah, they're calling my old agency, and they're breaking the law." Which is, anybody out there, if you don't know, when you call a previous employer, there's certain things that they can say and certain things that they can't. Even if you're the world's shittiest employee, it's, are you eligible for rehire? How long you worked there, and what your rate of pay was. And sometimes your prior employer won't even answer that because it's confidential information. My old agency was giving them long details, like, no, he's not eligible for hire because he did X, Y, and Z. And you can't do that. That's highly illegal, especially with the fact that I left in the middle of the investigation. So you never concluded the investigation. So you can't hold somebody, you can't find them guilty if they never stuck around.
Correct.
And that's just the way it goes in law enforcement.
Yeah.
But so I think the new job, I think the support from my wife and my kids certainly helped.
Okay.
I definitely put them through a lot of shit. Lot of shit when I was leaving the department. I didn't listen to my wife when we were doing the podcast because, she's very, very smart, and she kept on saying, she's like, "Hey, listen, you're on probation. Be careful, because they will fire you." And I was like, "Nah, they're never gonna fuck with me." Man, she was right.
Yeah,
she was right.
Yeah.
When we knew that they were listening, was when we probably should have taken a break from the podcast. We should have probably shut it down.
Okay.
But then, like, hindsight, if I was still there, how miserable would I be, and would I still be here?
Right.
And when I say still be here, I mean like living.
Right.
Because it was either going to be a heart attack or me taking my life, one or the other.
Right.
And the writing was on the wall, like the stress. And I mean, you can talk about it too, which is like, it is literally like a drug. Like, it's like heroin. It's hard to come off of it. And you're just addicted to it. You're addicted to the camaraderie. You're addicted to the adrenaline. But I'll tell you, on the outside now that I'm in the private sector, I get that same high, that same feeling. I got a good team that I work with.
Yeah.
I'm not running after anybody.
Yeah.
I don't have to wear a bulletproof vest anymore.
Yes.
I could take a shit and not have to like plan it out a half an hour before I got to take the shit, so I can take all my shit off my belt.
Right.
Like, this is the greatest feeling to run into Wawa and take a shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Shit in or at the toilet?
yeah. Like,
Upper decker.
I'm
that's the shit that they don't tell rookies, man. They're just like, you got to find a clean bathroom. You got to find a bathroom that has a hook on that door. When you close the door, it has to have that hook.
Oh, yeah.
Or you're fucked. Because if you put that gun belt on a bathroom floor,
You're not putting it back on.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not without it being sprayed down.
Yeah, we're all guys. We know about aim.
That's right.
It ain't great.
Or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
I'm also hearing that when in your new job, you instantly were valued, which strikes me as in your old job, you were not. True?
Yeah, very, very true. Like in my role that I'm in right now, I'm trying to think. In my overall United States team that I'm in, I'm one of very few former law enforcement.
Oh.
And the company that I'm with values that. It's very interesting because they ask questions, especially about active shooter training, especially about things where it's the safety of our folks that work for us.
Right.
The first person they're going to is folks from former law enforcement. They're saying, hey, listen, this is what our training is right now. It was developed by somebody that works in an office that's never been out on the street, never been in a shooting.
Right.
What do you think of it?
Yeah.
And that was my first task when I first came on. They were like, take a look at this active shooter training. And I was like, with all due respect, it's terrible. It's not good. This is stuff that we were teaching 10 years ago. The stuff that you're teaching is not good.
Right.
It's antiquated. And they were like, really? What's antiquated about it? And I was like, this, and this. You got to teach them, this. And it was instantly like, holy shit, this guy really knows what he's talking about.
Wow.
And then it added credibility to me coming on.
Yeah.
I know overall, like, my boss that I have is by far the best boss that I've ever had in my entire career, like working life.
Right.
That's awesome.
He's no bullshit. He knows my full backstory. He knows everything that my old department did to me. And I'll always remember this, which was when I first came on. I think it was my first week here. He was like, this is going to sound really, really bad, but I'm kind of glad that your department did what they did to you, because now you're in my team and I'm reaping the benefits.
Right.
And it felt good because it was validation. It was like, yeah, they really fucked you up, because he had to deal with a lot of stuff. I came with a lot of PTSD. When he would text message me, hey, Nick, give me a call. As a cop, when your boss tells you, hey, give me a call,
yeah,
the first thing you're thinking, get ready.
Fucked.
Two or three fingers. Here we go.
Start stretching it.
And I would call him immediately, and he was like, "Wow, you're fast, man. You could have called me later on." I was like, "If I did something wrong, I just want to get it over with." And he's like, "Why do you automatically think you did something wrong?" I go, "You understand where I'm coming from, man? Like,
right?
You just didn't." And I was a sergeant. You just didn't call up your troop and turn around and I go, "Hey, John, you got a second?" And they're like, "Yeah." "Hey, I just want to tell you, man, really sharp today, man. Really sharp uniform today, and you're just doing such a phenomenal job. Really, like, great job out there."
Yeah.
And then John on the other line would be like, "What the fuck does he want? Like, what's his angle?"
Right.
We just don't do that, right?
Here's the setup.
Yeah, it's like, "Hey, you're such a good officer. So much so that I volunteered you to run into the depths of hell."
Right.
Like that kind of bullshit. Right. So yeah, it was good. It was a good experience. And I got people that work for me now, and right now is our evaluation time. So what we do is we send out who we want to get feedback from in our professional, in our space. And I immediately sent the request to my subordinates, and I sent them each an individual message, and I said, listen, I value your opinion.
Yeah.
And they were blown away. They were like, what? I was like, I want you to write my evaluation.
Right.
And I was like, no holds barred.
Yep.
Don't feel pressured. If you put something on there that I need to work on, don't feel like there's going to be retaliation. I need to know. And they were blown away. And that's the way it should be. I mean,
absolutely.
Right.
You know, in law enforcement, our evaluations are fucking cookie cutter. They're cut and paste from the year before. Or you sit down and you pull up, like if you have a 6-person squad, you take a little bit from this person's eval from last year and a little bit from this one, and you cut and paste it because you're too lazy to sit down and write it from the beginning.
Right. And
you can't write anything bad in an evaluation because that means that you would have had to have performance managed them throughout the last 12 months. So even if this person is a shitbag, you can't say that they're a shitbag because you didn't properly document them all throughout the year.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So at the end of the year, you have to make this person look like
they're good,
a polished turd.
Just put the hat on the pig.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your folks that are listening to this are going to laugh because
Jeff's offended now.
How many
Stetson on the pig?
That's right.
Yeah. How many of your listeners out there have gotten their evaluation and the wrong name is in there, or there's stats that are on there that aren't yours?
Yeah.
I had
you
she, and it's a he because I cut and paste.
Yes.
She is this, she is that. And they're like, that's a dude.
And not to be a hypocrite, I was one of those guys. Like my first year as a sergeant, I was one of those guys because that's how it was taught to me. And what I did was I used Microsoft Word and I typed in there, find and replace. Find she, replace with he. Find Chris, replace with Steve, or shit like that.
I didn't know that trick. That's pretty good.
Oh, yeah, dude.
The shit you learn on the Roll Call Room podcast.
How'd I know?
Yeah, buddy.
You should do a segment on that. For all you lazy fucking super... Yeah, there you go. Yeah. The third book. Featuring Mr. Hat, Mark the Cop.
I remember doing it to my folks, which is a huge injustice to them.
Oh, yeah.
And you slide that eval across the table, and you're doing such a big injustice to them because for some of them, they're really waiting for that feedback. And to them, they think that you're sitting in that office and you're writing out a meaningful evaluation, and they read it and they're like, Sarge, I'm a he. And
my name's not Shaniqua, it's Bill.
Yeah. And
see, the guy I remember doing that to didn't even catch it, so he signed it, and it goes up to your supervisor. So that's how they don't give a shit about what we're writing.
No.
Right.
He didn't even notice it. So.
Yeah.
And I was the same way before I got promoted, and actually after I got promoted, because I was a sergeant for 8 years, and the first year I was a sergeant, I kind of cared because you have a year of probation.
Before
you have to care. You have to care.
Yeah, you have to care. The second year, I was kind of like, I know I did a good job. There's not, as long as I'm getting 3s and 4s, 4s are the highest, 1 is the lowest. As long as I'm getting 3s and 4s, I don't care. By year 3 as a sergeant, I would walk into my lieutenant's office. He'd go, hey, I got your evaluation. I'd go, any change? And he's like, no. And I'm like, am I getting a raise? He's like, yep. And I'm like, just go to the last page. I'll sign it.
Yeah.
I didn't even care. I never even took copies of them. And I shot myself in the foot. And that's another thing for your listeners. Always take a copy of your fucking evaluation. Because it was hard for me to prove later on that I was a good sergeant for 8 years. Right. And this investigation that they started on me came out of nowhere. It was hard for me to prove. Yeah, because they're like, I'll leave a copy in your mailbox. I was infamous for that shit as a sergeant. I don't got time for that. So to always take a copy of your evaluation, always take a copy of any write-up that you get, always take a copy of every single thing that your department entitles you to have. If you have a squad file and your department has a policy, like my policy in my old agency is you were able to see your squad file at any point with the sergeant in the room. You couldn't be left
Now
alone.
explain what that is, because in my world here in Brighton, cheerful Miami County, Ohio, I don't know what that means. What is a squad file?
Okay, so a squad file is, so there's your personnel file that HR has. Your squad file is what your sergeant has on you. It has your evaluations in there. It has your emergency contact information in there. It has written reprimands. It has verbal reprimands that are on paper. Like the way that I worked my counseling when I was a sergeant, if you fucked up on the street, and I knew it was something minor, that it didn't need to be investigated by I would pull you aside and I'd say, hey, listen, you can't do that. You can't talk to people that way. You can't do that this way, blah, 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 blah. I'd take a Post-it note like one of these big yellow ones, and I would write on there, 12/3/2022, had a conversation with Dave about impounding a car without notifying the owner that it's impounded. Boom. What I would do is I said on Microsoft Outlook 6 months from now, I'd write myself like a reminder or pop up on my calendar, remove written, verbal reprimand. And so as long as within those 6 months you didn't do it again, that little piece of paper got crumpled up, it got thrown out, or it got shredded.
Yeah.
Now, if we had that conversation again twice within that 6 months, it went from a verbal, which was on here, to an actual written reprimand. And then the third time it went to II. And so your squad file, a lot of agencies have a policy about your squad file, which is that you are allowed to review those squad files to make sure that the information in there is accurate. And the stuff that's purged is purged.
Yes.
Because I will tell you, I've taken over squads where sergeants have held on to stuff. We used to purge every 2 years. I would find stuff in there from 5-6 years ago.
Wow.
And
lazy.
Well, lazy, and it's
or
also
malicious.
It's very malicious because what happens is, I'm a new sergeant. I've never worked with you before. I want to look at what your stuff is. What I start doing is I start flipping through the stuff, and I go, oh shit, 6 years ago they did blah, 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 blah. And then it forms a bias in your head where you're like, oh, 6 years ago as an officer, I mean, a year ago as an officer, you mature so fast, or you're supposed to mature so very fast.
Or like me, I regress.
Age is a different story, my friend. Age is a different story. So folks out there that are listening need to understand, you need to review your squad file and hold your sergeant, and if you're a sergeant, your commander, accountable to purge the things that should be purged.
Amen.
And then the other thing is when I say purge, don't allow them to shred it or destroy it. You ask for it, request it. Say, I would like that. I would like everything that's purged. I'd like to keep it. And unless it's in the policy that says that you can't, you should be able to.
Yeah.
And also on the flip side to that is, and this is going off on a separate tangent, you should be checking your personnel file every year.
Oh, yes.
Every year.
Don't trust them motherfuckers.
No. I have seen benefits paperwork missing. I have seen officers that have gotten divorced and remarried where the new paperwork, that's the beneficiary stuff for their new spouse, is not in there. So if they got killed, it would go to the old wife, you know. That's the stuff that they're not going to check that for you. They're not going to do any of that stuff for you, and you'd be surprised what you find in there.
So on that, with my evaluations, it was funny because I retired in 2021. I hadn't received an evaluation since 2016. So suddenly, out of the blue, hey, we need to get your eval done. I'm like, really? Because every year I did peer review as well, because I work midnights and my bosses never seen me because they work 8 to 4 and we'd worked a 12-hour shift. So I worked 6P to 6A. So we literally never saw one another except for the monthly command meeting. So what I did was, I told them, could have given me a fucking email and stay home in bed. But what I did was I did peer review, and I kind of did a modified, just, doesn't meet, meets, or exceeds my expectation, just a 1, 2, or 3. And if you gave me a 1, and I was the same way you were, if you give me a 1, let's talk about it, because I can't improve as your boss unless I can fix it. And if it's something petty, like I yelled at you because you were being stupid one time a year ago, okay, that hurts your feelings, so we'll talk about that too. But anyway, so for 5 years, and I was a sergeant for 9. So for 5 years,
Jeez.
when I went over to check my personnel file under the shitstorm that I was leaving under, none of those peer reviews made it to my personnel file.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And so I went and asked my boss. I said, just coming over back from personnel. Was there a problem? Yeah, there is a big problem. Where's all my peer reviews? Number one, you want me to get this evaluation done that you haven't done in 3-4 years. Number two, I submitted to you peer reviews from my crew with them praising me, how they enjoyed working for me, and blah, 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 blah. And some of them wrote really nice letters that went along with it, because I told them, I want the chief to know what kind of job I'm doing for you and that I'm meeting your needs and expectations. I said, it's funny.
Right.
None of those are in there. Well, I don't know what happened to them. I said, of course you didn't.
No.
That's a good thing I have copies, so I'll be submitting them to personnel.
Yeah, I mean, if I can go back, go back in time and tell myself, like, things that I wish I would have done differently. I wish I would have documented things a lot better. And I think when you're in a department, I think you trust them too much. I think you're like, it's a law enforcement agency. They would never do anything like they
got my best
interest.
Sure.
They had my best interests in mind. Like, and I should have known better. Like I had folks work for me that had terminal diseases. One in particular, I had a female officer. She got sick from cancer and she passed away. And I saw how these commanders, treated the situation. She was only there for, and I have to stop myself because I did the same thing they did, which was they were like, well, she's only been here for 5 years. And I'm like, it doesn't fucking matter.
I've actually been here for 5 fucking minutes. She's one of us. She deserves the same respects and honors and dignity you give. Oh my God.
It was so bad. Like, I probably should have left then. Like, I should have just fucking left then. But you live and you learn. You live and learn, and there are new officers that are at my old agency that are feeling it now. They're having a hard time, just like everybody else. They're having a hard time with recruitment.
Yeah. Of course they are, but they don't understand why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, robots will be doing our job soon. I mean, San Francisco.
I saw that.
Do you see that shit?
The little robot dog with the AR on the back. I thought, what the fuck is this?
Was it San Francisco? Portland?
No,
it was San Francisco.
San Francisco. You can take a shit in the street in both cities, but
but San Francisco that hates their law enforcement just approved for robots to be able to make lethal force. So my question is like, who's the investigation on when that happens? Yeah. Like the robot operator or the robot?
Exactly. Now we're going to sue the. Well, the nice thing about it, they can just run the robot through the shredder, like they try to do officers afterwards.
Yeah, just like Johnny Number 5, just like dismantle that motherfucker.
Yeah,
no problem with recruitment.
No problem with recruitment. They don't call out sick.
Nope.
They don't answer back.
Nope.
Good luck, man. It's just a weird time in law enforcement.
It just kind of puts me in the mind of the Clone Wars on Star Wars. I'm like, oh my God, we're actually living this.
It's astounding. It's astounding. And I said this when I was doing another podcast the other day. I was like, the civilians out there, especially the ones that are anti-cop, really have no idea how bad it is. Like, it's not your Officer Joe out there humping a cruiser.
Right.
That's not who you need to worry about.
No.
You need to worry about who's in that fucking big castle police headquarters. That's who you need to worry about.
Oh, I fully and 110% agree.
Yeah. The reform doesn't need to happen out on the street. I mean, that shit, like, I listened to the episode that I did with this other podcast the other day, and I'll say it on this one, which is if you really want to change things, look at every chief of police. Forget about sheriffs. They're like used condoms. They get rotated. Like
squeeze it out and put it back on. You're talking about?
That's it. That's it.
Another bumper sticker.
Another great T-shirt.
Yes.
But look at every chief of police. Look at their resume and look at how many departments that they've jumped. How many departments have they worked for?
Oh, yeah.
And that's a fucking problem. If that was an officer, if that was Joe Motor Cop, and you looked at his resume and he's been at 6 departments in 25 years, that'd be a red flag. But for a chief, that's appealing.
Yeah.
That's a qualification. That's like, we're getting a good deal on this guy or gal. And that shit needs to stop. Like, it needs to stop.
Let me ask you a question, Nick. So, what if you have an internal candidate? Because here in my world, a lot of times they can't hire from the outside; they must hire from within. So, what are your feelings? Is that internal candidate, we put them through the same rigors as an external candidate? Because, like,
correct.
Have you ever heard of the terminology a post turtle? What a post turtle is? A post turtle here in my world
must be some Ohio shit.
It is. It's some Ohio bullshit. So we have round farm fences, right? And you know what a box turtle is? Just a regular like a pet store turtle. So we have round fence posts, right? So some smartasses will take a turtle and put it on the top of the fence post. Wow. So it's like, why would you do that? Well, you're being ornery. But and when we make the reference that that law, and I'm not pointing at you, Jeff, but that person, that chief, that deputy chief is a post turtle because someone put him there. He's now that he's there, he's far beyond his abilities, and now that he's there, he also needs someone to help him get down. Because there's no way he earned that position. He's a post turtle. So, when they're trying to promote these people, I really strongly feel that the councils should go out to the entire and say, okay, this guy qualifies, this one, this one, this one. We should be doing a panel of all of these instead of the selected guy that the last chief does.
I'll take it a step further, and I took this from the company that I work for now, which I can't say who they are for obvious reasons. I was astounded at their hiring process because it was way tougher to get hired there than it was in law enforcement.
Wow.
And I could tell you that with 100% certainty.
Wow.
It was way harder to get hired at this company. Wow. And I firmly believe that there should be, for any candidate interested in the chief of police job. So vacancy comes, you announce it nationally, people put in for it, you do phone screens, you narrow it down to, 4 or 5 people. You should have a 5-member panel.
Amen.
It's a 5-member panel. No one on that panel is from the mayor's office, the city manager's office, no political figure on that panel. It should be at least one member of service, one person that's in the patrol level. It should be comprised of citizens, and it should be comprised of your most senior officer in your department, whoever that may be. And out of the 5-panel member, it must be a majority for that person to move on to a face-to-face interview with the final decision maker. Yes. You do that, you're going to get the best possible candidate. And that's why in the company that I work in, I am surrounded by some of the best leaders in the industry because that's how rigorous the process is.
Right.
If you don't get the majority of the 5, and quite honestly, in the position that I'm in right now, you need to get 5 out of 5. For you to get the job.
Wow.
And it's not easy to get 5 people independently to agree that this is the best candidate. And that's why some of these vacancies in the company that I work for have been vacant for months because they interview a lot of people and they get 4 out of the 5, 3 out of the 5.
Yeah.
When they get that 5 out of 5, they're jumping on that right away. Oh, yeah. And I didn't know about it when I was interviewing for this company. I had interviewed for it on Tuesday. I had scored 5 out of 5. Wednesday, I got my offer.
Wow.
And the reason why I got my offer, and I didn't know that any of this stuff, I was foreign to it.
Right.
The reason, and my boss told me this, is that position had been vacant for 8 months.
Oh, good
and
Lord.
And the moment that they got a 5 out of 5, they were scared that somebody else was going to grab me up. And this company is so confident in their interviewing abilities and the way that they do things, they didn't even call my department. They didn't even call for a background.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Because if you could pass their rigorous process,
exactly,
you're doing it the right way.
What you got going on behind you there, Nick?
Is it Chick-fil-A that you work for? That sounds like.
Yes, I am the vice president of Bear Nuggets, not the ones.
Sounds like the hiring process.
That That's John. John's the vice president of the breaded ones. That guy's a fucking dick. So my team and his team constantly battling. I have naked nuggets and he's the breaded. I eventually want to work my way up to the vice president of waffle fries.
Work your way up to the drive-thru.
That's right.
Whoa.
Baby step. Baby step.
Bro, I don't know if I can handle drive-through. That's a big step.
I'll give you drive-through on evenings.
Yeah.
5 to midnight. Right. Donnie.
All right.
Key the music.
Key the music, Donnie.
May your days and nights find you strong and safe. May you take your place as your family's face. As you do the shit that we won't do. As you embrace the risk you must go through. May you grow in strength and heal and find your heart, your soul, and your mind. You look at your life and grin. You have a home, the shield within.